When you think of a dark, moist, wooded area full of exotic-looking ferns, vines, and tall trees, as well as brightly colored organisms, what comes to mind is probably an image of the tropical rainforests of South and Central America. However, the cypress swamp habitats of South Florida are much more similar to the rainforests of South and Central America than some people might assume. I know I certainly wouldn't believe that this pan shot that I'm showing you guys right now was in South Florida if I wouldn't have been told before. Hello children, today we're out in this beautiful South Florida cypress swamp in search for a very specific species of insect that I featured on this channel before but never made the full centerpiece of my video. Now this species of insect that I'm trying to look for can not only be found in South Florida cypress swamps, but also in Central American rainforests, which is just incredible how that species can survive in these two strangely similar habitats, but in two places that are across the sea from one another. It's absolutely incredible, and I hope that I could showcase multiple different color forms of this beautiful species to you guys. But first, it's important to acknowledge that since we are indeed in South Florida, most of the wildlife you'll find in our South Florida cypress swamps are North American species, such as this absolutely gorgeous red-shouldered hawk, which is using this perch to scan the bottom of the cypress swamp in search for potential prey items. More interesting, though, to me personally, was finally getting my lifer hermit thrush. I had never seen this highly migratory species before, and it was interesting seeing one in the dark South Florida cypress swamp when their breeding area is actually northern and western North America. They migrate southward and spend the winters in the southern states, Mexico, and a little bit of Central America. A lot like the birds, the reptiles and amphibians are also a lot like what you'd expect from South Florida, such as this beautiful brown water snake that was just out basking, taking the little bit of sun rays that were left during the cooler springtime. But when you start paying attention to the insects, things start getting a little weirder. This right here is an absolutely gorgeous specialty of South Florida and the Caribbean. This is the Atala butterfly. Now this is a very weird colored hair streak butterfly, a family that is normally kind of a dull grayish brown color. Speaking of dull brown butterflies, check out this Dorantes Longtail that's just kind of there on the boardwalk. Now these guys are called Dorantes Longtails because they normally have two long tail streamers on their hind wings. However, this one's a little worn and they seem to have fallen off with age. In my opinion though, some of the strangest animals that you could find in South Florida cypress swamps are the Odonata, or the dragonflies and damselflies, such as this absolutely gorgeous great pond hawk, which is aptly named because it is much bigger looking in the field than it is in this video. They absolutely dwarf the similar eastern pond hawk when side by side. I feel like we're coming closer and closer to our target species every second, and while this pale green darner right here is definitely not a close relative to our target species, it is similar in that outside of Florida, its main habitat preference is dark foresty areas like Central and South American rainforests. However, the range also extends upward into southern Texas, as well as into the Caribbean islands. This species is rapidly expanding in population in Florida, though it is still relatively rare, and the small pockets of populations that these guys do have is most likely traced back to vagrants from their Central American and Caribbean range. For a second I thought we finally found our target, but this is actually a furtive forktail, a species with a similar overall body shape and perching preference to our target species. Unlike our target species though, while it is elusive, the furtive forktail is actually quite a common species in eastern North America as a whole. This was still an exciting find as it was my first time ever seeing a male. Males of this species can be easily identified by the small blue ring around the tip of the abdomen. Other male forktail species in South Florida either have much more blue there or no blue at all. Unlike the males, female furtive forktails are highly variable, ranging from this reddish color with green on it, to a yellowish, greenish brown color, to even sometimes a dark blue-gray color. Finally, perched very high up in this tree for a damselfly is our target species, the Lucifer Swampdamsel. While it is amazing to finally come across one of these today, we can probably still get some closer and better angles on some of these. This right here is a heteromorph, or relatively dull-colored female Lucifer Swampdamsel. She's in good lighting, so you could actually make out the coloration. Heteromorph females are a mix of dull greens and browns, usually with some sort of pale coloration at the tip of the abdomen, while this pale coloration in heteromorph females is usually a creamy brown color. It can sometimes be a pruinose blue color, which is reportedly actually the normal color variation of heteromorph females in their Central American range. Andromorph females are much brighter than heteromorph females, and while andromorphs are also quite variable in terms of the coloration on the thorax, which ranges from dark coloration to a dull green color to even sometimes bright blue, something that all andromorph females have in common is a bright reddish orange patch at the tip of the abdomen. This is very similar to the bright red patch that males form, hence the name andromorph, meaning male-like. I managed to catch this blue phase andromorph female for an up-close view as to why this is a female and not a male. Now on this in-hand view, you could clearly see her ovipositor, which is a little organ at the tip of her abdomen that she uses to lay eggs when she's ready. Now finally, we've come across our first male Lucifer Swampdamsel. This right here is an immature male, so all the coloration on the thorax is blue. However, when males mature, that blue coloration on the thorax turns into a bright green color, and that reddish orange at the tip of the abdomen develops into a bright red patch. In hand, you could really see how much more slender the abdomen of the male is than the female, as well as the lack of that ovipositor. In person, the beautiful bright greens and reds looked even brighter up close than they did far away. Something absolutely incredible about the Lucifer Swampdamsel is that the only known place in the entire world where you could find this species, besides South Florida, is in Central American rainforests, from the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico all the way down to, I believe, Nicaragua. The fact that such an obscure species managed to make its way all the way over across the Caribbean Sea to South Florida is incredible to me.